Hey, welcome once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk, Monday, November 26th. Welcome, everybody. Lots to go over this week for today. As we haven't been on air for a week, I'm Aaron Blocks with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Man, where do you want to start? Let's get started with the three stars of the week. Obviously, Patrick Laine, number one, Marc-Andre Fleury, number two, and Nikita Kucherov, number three. Fill us in with their stats and what they did this week, Matt.
Yeah, so Kucherov at the third star in 4 games, had 2 goals and 9 points. Marc-Andre Fleury went with 3 wins and 0 losses, 2 back-to-back shutouts, and a .976 save percentage. Woo. And Patrick Laine, just a mere 11 goals in 4 games, including a 5-goal game against the St. Louis Blues. Shout out to that guy winning that $1 million as well. It's been a while with that the Safeway deal with all the Canadian teams. If you guys,
I forgot about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw here in Vancouver they switched it to 4 goals this year because we're just that bad. But but yeah, Patrick Laine now leads the league in goals with 19. The guy has 3 hat tricks on the season already. So the guy, after pretty quiet start to the season, is just absolutely on an absolute tear right now.
Let's start off in the Pacific Division. Just after our last episode, the Edmonton Oilers decided to make a coaching change, which I think surprised a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Todd McLellan out, Ken Hitchcock of all people in. What do you think of this choice, and do you think it's the right choice?
Yeah, this one came out of nowhere because Hitchcock retired at the end of this past year with the Dallas Stars, so it's just I thought he was totally off the radar, sort of thing. So when they picked him, because of course the first name everybody's gonna throw out there is either John Quenneville or Alain Vigneault are the 2 biggest names out there, I'd say. But I think Quenneville just wants to avoid that mess in Edmonton right now. It's not the best fit for him right now. But since the Oilers went to the Cup run, they've gone through 8 head coaches. So talk about a big mess there. But yeah, I think Hitchcock in the short term can get a lot out of this team. He's more of a defensive-minded coach. I think he's been known for being really hard on players to try to get them on track there. But I think the big thing here is it's on Peter Chiarelli. This guy's just trying to save his job. I think by the end of the season, I think he'll be gone as the Oilers general manager, because as much as McLellan, he's a great coach, but he's not the guy trading Taylor Hall for Adam Larson, signing Milan Lucic to that massive contract, trading Griffin Reinhart, and missing out on Matt Barzal with that pick. There's the Jordan Eberle trade as well. So it's not all on McLellan, but yeah, I'll be interested to see how Hitchcock does. I think he's been off to a little bit of a decent start, but it'll take a little bit of time for the teams to get all the special teams down to the way he wants it. But yeah, we'll see how it transitions there.
I'm really curious to see how he communicates to the younger generation. Being an older school guy like he is, I was a little surprised at this hire for sure. But sticking with the Edmonton Oilers, they did make a trade this last week. Fill us in with those details.
Yeah, so a minor trade with the Ottawa Senators. They picked up defenseman Chris Weidman for a 6th-round pick in 2020, which belonged to the St. Louis Blues to the Ottawa Senators. Weidman has sort of been like the 6th, 7th defenseman in Ottawa, but he has a lot of offensive upside. It's more the defensive lapses in his own end. So he could provide a spark to that power play, and especially with some struggles from Matt Benning on that right-hand side, it gives him another option.
Yeah, let's stick with the coaching subject. Calgary Flames coach Bill Peters takes a puck to the face last night. What did you think of that, and how good are the Calgary Flames playing right now? Behind goaltender David Rittich.
I know, yeah. So Calgary right now, it's they had that huge win against Arizona last night, 6-1. They scored 3 short-handed goals in that game. But I think the big surprise here is David Rittich in net. I think he's 8-2-0 this year. with a .930 save percentage and 1 shutout. I know Mike Smith played in that game, but Smith's numbers are he's 6.71 on the year, but he's still at an .883 save percentage. So the save percentage went above 88 now, but Matthew Tkachuk has been on absolute tear this season. I know I said that before with Lonnie, but this guy, as most of us Canuck fans have lamented at taking Yo Levy over him, has 12 goals and 27 points in 24 games this season. When with him and Goudreau and Monahan are both in the top 25 in league scoring right now. And on the back end, Mark Giordano has had a really good comeback year from last year. And especially with going younger, because I know Michael Stone is out with a blood clot right now, but he'd been a healthy scratch of late as they go younger with like guys with Rasmus Anderson and Juuso Välimäki on that back end. So if Rittich continues to play well, the Flames could go on a pretty good run, especially with the Pacific Division being so bad this year.
Oliver Shylington, of course, got called up as well for the game last night. A couple other minor things in the Pacific Division. Anaheim Ducks sent forward Maxime Comtois back to junior. That was a weird one because he had 7 points in 10 games, seemed to be doing well, but his conditioning stint had come to an end, and I guess they didn't have a spot for him on the team. Last but not least, the Los Angeles King coach Willie D decided to sit Ilya Kovalchuk last night at the 14-minute mark of the second period, and he never saw the ice again. Why don't you just quickly comment on those two things, and we'll move on to the next division.
Yeah. So Comtois, it's like I saw he got sent down for that conditioning stint. So I thought with all the major injuries that Anaheim's been dealing with this season, I think they've used like over 30 players so far this season. I thought he was going to get a call up and provide a little bit more speed, and especially with the amount of points that he put up, I'm pretty shocked about that. But with that, Team Canada will get a pretty good boost for the World Juniors coming up at the end of December here. And with Kovalchuk, I think Desjardins come out a couple of times saying, just calling him like a power play specialist, only thinking about offense sort of thing. And with the guy's age being over 35 years old now, he sort of is what he is. But still, I don't get why with an offensively starved team, why you would bench somebody like that, because I think the Kings have only scored 51 goals in 23 games so far this year. So just averaging just a little over 2 goals a game. You think the guy, especially with the general manager, Rob Blake, paying the guy over $6 million that you want him playing.
Sorry, and one more thing in the Pacific, it kind of leads us into the Central. Of course, the Arizona Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks made a trade yesterday. Fill us in on those details.
Yeah, so Chicago traded center Nick Schmaltz to the Arizona Coyotes for Dylan Strome and Brendan Perlini. I think this was a pretty intriguing trade. I think nobody really saw this coming. Schmaltz had been a healthy scratch, I think, once this year and has like 11 points in 23 games, something like that. But he had 52 points last year playing on a line with Patrick Kane, but hasn't had that good of an offensive year this year. And Dylan Strome and Brendan Perlini have struggled a little bit offensively. Strome, I'm very interested in seeing with him going to Chicago. He'll be reunited with one of his lineates back in the OHL with Alex DeBrincat, who they both played with the Sarnia Sting. I saw somebody joking, all you got to do is get Connor McDavid somehow over there, and you got the big three from that time there. But if Strome, I think the biggest thing with him has been his skating so far in his career. But I'd be interested to see how he does. I think it's really early. And Perlini last year scoring 17 goals. I think he only has like 2 or 3 so far this year. But I think if he plays with good line mates with Jonathan Toews or Patrick Kane, I think that could provide a spark. But Schmaltz, if he gets back to the way he's played the last couple of years, or at least last season, it should give the Coyotes a good boost. But I think the interesting thing here is all the former first-round picks Chicago has been trading away, like Philippe Deneau to Montreal and Tuvo Teravainen to Carolina, and Ryan Hartman last year to the Nashville Predators. And each of those players have actually turned into some pretty good players so far this year, with the guys going back not as good. But yeah, something to keep an eye on there.
Back to coaching we go. St. Louis Blues lose to the LA Kings last week. Final straw. They decide to fire Coach Mike Yeo. And I'm having a brain fart as to who they hired.
Craig Berube is the interim coach right now. I think General Manager Doug Armstrong said they're going to do a big in-depth search for their next head coach, meaning John Quenneville, can you please sign here?
Is he coming back to St. Louis, do you think?
I know. I think he'd be a good fit there. Like they got some real, like Armstrong went out and made a bunch of trades and big signings this offseason, but things haven't really come together. I know Yeo, before he got fired, the team had been shut out in 3 of their last 4 games and hadn't scored a power play goal in the last 7. So things were going pretty bad there, and especially with the goaltending as well with Jake Allen this year is really struggling. I think Ryan O'Reilly's been basically their biggest bright spot there, with him absolutely ripping it up this year. But Tarasenko had gone through a big goal drought, and I know he finally got one against the Jets on the weekend. But yeah, I think it sort of sucks because I think they have the right pieces outside of the goaltending to make a run. But yeah, it's just bad luck.
That's the parity I think that the league is today. Hard to not talk about the Central Division and talk about the Rantanen, Landeskog, and McKinnon line for Colorado as they continue to get it done. Nashville continues to get it done as they're also in first place. But, man, that line in Colorado is something to watch.
I know, yeah. Rantanen continues to lead the league in points and assists. He's up to 38 points in 23 games. McKinnon's up to 15 goals, 35 points, and Landeskog's at 14 goals, 26 points. These guys are basically just about put out the same amount of goals combined as the LA Kings this year, which is quite sad if you're an LA Kings fan. But man, these 3 guys, I can watch them all day. I think that game against Arizona, that little flip pass that Landeskog had to Rantanen to spring him on a breakaway, it was just
disgusting.
Yeah, just man. But yeah, it's just every game they bring it. And now they're starting to get back on track. I think they had a bit of a losing streak going on, but I know now they've won their last 4 games. So I know now they're up to 3rd place in the Central Division and tied with Minnesota actually for 2nd, with both of them playing the same amount of games. So that Central Division, it's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes up. Between Nashville, Minnesota, Colorado, and Winnipeg. Winnipeg's played a couple less games so far this year, so they're right in the thick of it.
Yeah, it's definitely tight in the standings, as are most of the other divisions right now. Jump into the Atlantic Division. You talked about Colorado's win streak. Let's talk about the win streak. The Buffalo Sabres of all teams now have won 9 games in a row. 1 point back at Tampa Bay for the league lead, I believe. Yeah. They're in 3rd in the entire league right now. Man, you talked about Patrick Laine and his goal scoring. Jeff Skinner's come out of nowhere this year, and he's doing just a fantastic job in Buffalo. But what else have you seen there?
Well, I think Carter Hutton has been great in that, and even Linus Ullmark, their backup goalie. I think he hasn't lost a game in regulation at all this year. But I'll take credit for Buffalo with their win streak. I think I forgot it was earlier. You were asking between Boston, Buffalo, and Montreal. Out of those 3 teams, who I saw was going to make that big run up the standings, and I went with Buffalo. I think my brain would have said Boston, but I wanted somebody different in Buffalo. So thankfully they've gone on a nice run here, backing me up. No big deal, as the Spin Chicklets guys would say. But yeah, that top line of Eichel, Skinner, and Pominville, but especially Eichel and Skinner. Skinner up to 18 goals this year, and as I'll say again, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year, and he's going to get paid.
Yes.
And I saw a story that they haven't started talking contract yet, but I think closer to the new year, I believe him and his agent will start talking probably a big long-term deal there. But yeah, Jack Eichel has been huge for them up front. And on the back end, Rasmus Dahlin has finally started to get things going. I believe he has 8 points in his last 8 games. And I think he'll give. I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be named Rookie of the Month this year. I think the big offensive output actually started in that game against the Vancouver Canucks, where he had a couple assists there. But yeah, it's like watch some of the highlights watching him. I think in that Pittsburgh game, just some of the dangles and even some of the hits that guy can bring is fun to watch. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long Buffalo can stay on this win streak, and if they can keep pace with Tampa Bay and Toronto for the rest of the season. But yeah, they're getting the goaltending, which is the number one thing, and health wise, helping Eichel not go down to some long term injury so far this year. It has been really good.
Yeah, and I think the thing that surprised me more than the 9-game win streak is the way that they've won games. You know, that you talked about. They came back against the Canucks. They came back against Pittsburgh. They beat Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. So there's been some tough games there, and they've managed to find a way to win, which is important in this league for sure. Toronto Maple Leafs sitting in third in that division. What's the latest on William Nylander? And his time continues to run out for Toronto.
Yeah, so that December 1st date is coming up pretty quick here. I think so. He has until 5 p.m. Eastern time on December 1st to get a deal done. Otherwise, he's ineligible to play in the NHL this season. I think I've seen some numbers thrown out there. I think Mark Savard tweeted out that $6.9 million could be the number we're looking at. I'm not sure if it'll be long-term or short-term, but I saw his buddy David Pastrnak today. He was asked about if he has any regrets on the contract that he got. I think he's only making $6.6 million. And if you look at the production he's had this year, he's worth way more than that. But he says it's just like, I'm just thankful that I'm making that money right now. It's like I could be making a couple $100 a game playing in the Czech Republic, but I'm over here making over $6 million. So for some guys, it's not all about the money. It's just like, hey, it's like even if you're Nylander, if you're getting $6+ million, I know he's wanting that $8 million. It's just like you gotta think big picture here, or even if you want to go on a bridge deal, if they can work out something out that way. It'll be really interesting to see. And also a shout out to Patrick Marleau, who's playing in his 1600th NHL game tonight. Only 10 other players in NHL history have done that, which is crazy. And I think he's done 733 straight games. For his age, getting up there at like 39, 40 years old is very impressive.
Patrick Marleau, of course, one of the few guys left in the NHL that's my age. Just to wrap up the Atlantic Division, do you see Boston being able to maintain with Patrice Bergeron out for the next month? And Montreal, what kind of boost is Shea Weber going to give to them as he comes back off injury?
Yeah. So Boston, I think they've done a really good job of keeping on winning with all the injuries they've had, especially on their back end. I know they got Kevin Miller back, but like guys with like McAvoy, Chara, Vakanainen, their top first rounder that got injured. And then Miller out long term. John Moore had been out and he's been back in. But yeah, with that better back end, I think offensively, I think they got David Krejci that can step up at the center ice position, and David Backes. I think that's a big question mark. If he can start earning that big contract, because he only got his first goal of the season last game. So if you want to throw in bad contracts like Lucic and Eriksson, you can start to throw Backes' name in there as well. But I think they've dealt with injuries and they've played really well. Yaroslav Halak keeps doing his thing so far this year. I think basically him and Rask are basically splitting the net now, with Rask's game coming back into the way that he wants. In Montreal, it's with some of those teams right behind them, just outside of the last playoff spot with the Rangers, the Hurricanes, and Pittsburgh. I think they're going in the wrong direction right now. They've lost their last 4 games. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10. I think the big thing here is Carey Price. His save percentage is .897, which is the same as Jacob Markstrom with the Vancouver Canucks. So yeah, you Canuck fans, you think Markstrom's been bad? Well, Price is right there, save percentage wise. But yeah, getting Shea Weber back, man, this guy is a pillar back there. It's like this guy's usually good for 40, 50 points a year. I know he's getting up there a little bit in age, but just his presence on that back end will be a huge boost for the Habs. And then guys will start to go back into their main positions because Jeff Petry's been their big minute man, and that brings them down to that second pairing. I saw they put Carl Alzner on waivers today, so it'll be interesting to see if they end up sending him back to the minors, which I think they will, because I think they have to get down to that 23-man roster with all the defensemen they have. I know Bergevin had tried to move somebody in a trade, but so far that didn't work out, so they'll have to move them down to the minors.
Let's jump over to the Metropolitan Division. Washington Capitals are now first in that division. Winners of 5 games straight, 6-1 since Tom Wilson has come back from suspension. Do you think he's bringing – I mean, he's had over a point a game since returning. Do you think his presence is being felt, or do you think Washington's just finally starting to turn it on?
Well, I think Wilson's been a huge boost because I think he got another goal tonight so far. So he's up to 5 goals. And the most impressively, they're doing it without Kuznetsov and Oshie in the lineup. They're still dealing with those upper body or concussion injuries, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Holtby's starting to play good because he had a rough start to the season. But yeah, the thing with that Metropolitan, it's just like all you gotta do is win a few games, because the Rangers had moved up into that second place spot, but now they're dropping off after a couple of losses in the standings. But yeah, I think Washington, with dealing with those injuries to Kuznetsov and Oshie and still winning, is very impressive. And then guys like Backstrom and Eller have really stepped up up front, and then John Carlson is proving that he's earning that big money that he got in that contract in the off season. I think he's up to like 20 points or something so far this year. So yeah, I think Washington's starting to get in their own. I know Columbus is right there, right behind them, because Columbus's top line and Panarin, Dubois, and Atkinson, who scored in like 7 straight games, has really been tearing it up right there as well.
Yeah, we'll touch on some of those other teams in a minute, as the parity in that division is pretty crazy. Philadelphia Flyers today, though, fired general manager Ron Hextall, who apparently was their best goaltender on their lineup. Why do you think they did that? Is it merely because he hasn't pulled the trigger to bring in a goaltender, or are they just tired of being at the bottom of that division?
Yeah, it's like this one sort of came out of nowhere for me today as well. Like I know like he's had some pretty good contract wise, like getting Giroux and Voracek down for a big decent price. And even their back end hasn't been overly bad. Like the Andrew McDonald deal has been probably the worst one out of all of them. But like Wayne Simmons is on a pretty good deal right now. And I thought bringing JVR back was a pretty good move in the off season. But yeah, it's that goaltending, and it's not all Hextall's fault. It's just, but Philly's used 5 goalies so far this year, which is not good. I know some of it has to do to injuries, but if you're onto your 5th string goalie, there's problems, and they still haven't even used Carter Hart this year. I think that's the guy that they continue to wait for, but I know they won't want to rush him. But yeah, it's a sort of thing, because I think he's done some good things in the draft and through trades and free agency. So. But I think their statement today is just like, I think philosophically they just had different views on where the team was going.
You touched on Columbus now being in second with their red hot line. And the parity of that division we mentioned is pretty crazy. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New Jersey, 6th, 7th, and 8th respectively. All were in the playoffs last year, all on the outside looking in right now. outside of the New York Rangers, who I know have surprised both you and I with the roster that they have, I have no idea how they've been able to stay competitive. What team do you think is going to make a push towards the top of this standings? Is it going to be the Islanders, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Philly, Jersey? Who do you see?
Well, it's so hard to count out Pittsburgh. I think both you and I had them winning the division at the beginning of the season. I know with Matt Murray out long term with a lower body injury, as it's another injury for him over the past couple seasons now that he's had to deal with. But Casey DeSmith has actually played really well in his stead. As I quickly look up the stats here, he's 5-3-3 on the season, but he has a .927 save percentage and 2 shutouts. He's done a really good job. And Tristan Jarry, who they called up, has a bunch of NHL experience and had a pretty good season last year for them as well. So they got Crosby back in the lineup. We've seen some of the things that he's been doing since getting back to the lineup, scoring a couple of that one nice highlight reel goal against the Dallas Stars. But also Tanner Pearson starting to fit in. He has 3 goals, 4 points in 6 games there, as well as they're starting to get some depth scoring there. And I know Hornquist is out with concussion right now as well, but Letang has been ripping it up. So as long as those top 6 guys can continue to go, I think they can make a push. But yeah, Columbus, I just want to see what they do with Panarin and Bobrovsky coming up as the deadline gets closer, and it's just like they'll be in that really weird spot where it's like they want to win the cup, but if you don't think you can re-sign Panarin or Bobrovsky, you don't want to lose them for nothing. Even if if it comes down to trading their rights, that's nowhere near what you get for them at the trade deadline. So I think they'll finish in one of those top 3 spots where they've done the past couple of years. But the thing is, are they going to get over that playoff hump? They're sort of like the Minnesota Wild of the Eastern Conference, where they're great in the regular season, but when they get in the playoffs, they sort of fade away. So I think Panarin is the bigger name out of the two, because I think Panarin is going to go wherever he's going to get the most money long term. And Bobrovsky, I think I've seen an article sort of connecting the Canucks to him as well, because I know Ian Clark, the Canucks goalie coach, was the Columbus's goalie coach the past couple seasons there. And we've seen Jim Benning with the Ryan Miller signing that short-term deal for big money, that he isn't afraid to go out and spend money on a goaltender. So if you don't think Nielsen or Markstrom, which both guys aren't the goalies of the future in Vancouver, be interesting to see if he ends up out west here.
Finally, for all you Vancouver Canuck fans, Brock Besser will make his return, it looks like, tomorrow night against the LA Kings. Final word to you, Matt, before we end today's show.
Yeah, so 5 games today. I'll have the highlights out sometime tonight. I saw that we got a few more followers on our Facebook page. So welcome to all you guys. I think we're pushing up to 50 people now on our Facebook page. So shout out to all you guys that follow us here and on YouTube. We really appreciate it. But yeah, we'll be back hopefully on Wednesday. Hopefully this week everything will work out perfectly, and we'll have 3 shows for you out this week. But yeah, it's a lot of news today. We'll have all the news out on Wednesday.
Fantastic. So for Aaron Bloxel and Matt Balzer, we thank you again for watching. We will see you guys on Wednesday.